English Learning Podcast.
From the Urine Still YouTube channel.
Hello, English learners, and welcome to the English Podcast. I'm your host, Jessica, and I'm so excited to have you all with us today.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here.
Today, we're diving into a topic that I know many English learners find challenging, building the confidence to move beyond just studying English and actually speaking it fluently. To guide us through this, we have an amazing guest with us. Welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for inviting me.
I'm thrilled you could join us. Let me ask you, have you ever felt like you're stuck? You're studying grammar, memorizing vocabulary, but when it's time for a real conversation, you feel too nervous to speak?
Oh, absolutely. It's super common. And it's like this trap. A lot of learners, they fall into this trap. We call it the study trap.
Okay, the study trap. I think we've all been there. What does that look like?
Well, it's when you spend so much time like memorizing and trying to get everything perfect that you actually forget the most important part.
What's that?
Actually using the language to communicate.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like imagine you want to learn how to play the guitar.
Okay.
You could spend hours and hours reading books about music theory and chords and all these techniques. But until you actually pick up a guitar and start, strumming those strings, you're not really playing.
You're not playing. Exactly.
So how can we avoid falling into this study trap when it comes to speaking English?
I think the first step is a mindset shift.
Okay.
We have to stop thinking about English as a subject to study and start seeing it more like a tool to communicate with other people.
I like that.
Right. And it's like learning any other skill. You have to practice using it in real life situations to really get good at it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
So it's less about memorizing and more about just using the language. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of learners, they get really worried about making mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're so focused on speaking perfectly that they end up not speaking at all. But let's do a reality check here. Everyone makes mistakes.
Yeah, even native English speakers.
Oh, yeah, for sure. All the time. So the key here is to just not let that fear of making mistakes hold you back.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I know I can say for myself as an English speaker learning other languages, I was terrified to sound silly. I didn't want to make mistakes. But like you said, everyone makes them.
Exactly. And think about it this way. When you are listening to someone speaking your native language, are you judging them for every little grammar error they make?
No, not really. I'm more focused on trying to understand what they're trying to communicate to me.
Right. Communication is about connecting with other people and sharing your ideas, not about being perfect.
Yeah.
So embrace those little stumbles. They're actually stepping stones.
I love that.
To fluency.
So we need to change our mindset, not be afraid to make mistakes. What else can we do to kind of break free from this study trap and start speaking with more confidence?
Well, one of the best things you can do is create opportunities to practice speaking.
Okay.
And there are so many ways to do this, even if you don't live in an English-speaking country.
Right.
Have you ever tried using like a language exchange app?
I've heard of them, but I've never actually used one. How do they work?
Okay, well, they're basically platforms where you can connect with native English speakers who are learning your language. So you can chat online, you can have video calls, sometimes even meet up in person if you're in the same city.
Cool.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. So it's a really great way to kind of, get that real life practice.
What about if I'm not quite ready for a language exchange? Are there other options?
Yeah, of course. There's tons of online conversation groups and communities where you can practice speaking with other English learners from all over the world.
Okay, so there's language exchange apps, online conversation groups. What if I can't find a partner or group?
Well, there's one really powerful tool that's always available to you.
What's that?
yourself,
What do you mean?
talking to yourself
Oh, in English.
in English. Yeah. I know it might sound a little strange at first.
Yeah, but it's such an effective way to practice without feeling self-conscious, you know?
I can see that.
It's like thinking out loud, but in English. So you can just describe what you're doing, you can talk about your plans, you can even practice new words and grammar that you've learned.
It's like having a built-in speaking partner.
Exactly. Always ready to go.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, and don't underestimate it. It's really powerful.
Okay, so we've talked about talking to yourself in English.
Right.
What about listening? Is there anything we could do with listening that can help improve our speaking?
Oh, absolutely. This is super important. It's called immersive listening.
Okay, immersive listening. Tell me about that.
It's basically about surrounding yourself with English as much as possible. So you can watch movies, TV shows, listen to podcasts, even play music in English.
Right. Have you ever tried watching a movie with subtitles on?
Oh, yeah, I do that all the time in English
Yes, that's a fantastic strategy, especially when you're starting out.
because it helps you pick up new vocabulary, improve your listening comprehension, and just get used to the rhythm and flow of natural English speech.
Yeah, it just kind of makes English a more natural part of your life, not just something you study, but something that's around you all the time.
Exactly. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll become with the language. Now, I have a fun challenge for you to kind of put all of this into practice.
Ooh, a challenge. I love a challenge. Tell me more.
Okay, so I call it the 30-day speaking transformation.
Okay.
So for the next 30 days, I want you to commit to speaking English for at least 15 minutes every single day.
15 minutes?
Yeah, that sounds doable, even for someone like me who's really busy.
Exactly. It's about consistency, not intensity. You can break it up into smaller chunks throughout the day. Like you could speak for 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes during your lunch break, 5 minutes before bed.
That's a great idea.
So during these 15 minutes, what kinds of things should I be talking about?
Anything you like. The goal is just to get those vocal cords moving, get those words flowing. Describe your day, talk about your hobbies, tell a story, practice new vocabulary or grammar, even have imaginary conversations in your head.
Oh, I love that. So many options.
Exactly.
Now, you mentioned recording ourselves earlier. How does that help us? How does recording ourselves speaking English help us improve?
Well, when you listen back to your recordings, you become more aware of how you sound.
Okay.
Right? You can hear the areas where you need to improve, like your pronunciation or your grammar. You might notice that you repeat certain words or phrases too often, or that you speak too quickly or too slowly.
Now, that's a really interesting point. I've never actually thought about recording myself speaking English before, but I can see how that would be really helpful to kind of hear yourself from an outside perspective.
Exactly. It's like having your own personal English coach right there in your pocket.
I like that.
Now, remember what we said about mistakes.
Yeah.
They're our friends.
Our friends.
Right. So when you listen back to your recordings, don't be discouraged if you hear mistakes. Instead, see them as opportunities to learn and grow.
Yeah, that's a much better way to look at it. Instead of focusing on what we're doing wrong, we can focus on how we can get better.
Exactly. Now, I have one more bonus tip for you to kind of take this challenge to the next level.
Okay, I'm ready.
Create a mistake journal.
A mistake journal, what's that?
It's just a simple notebook where you write down any mistakes you notice while you're speaking or listening to your recordings.
Okay, so instead of getting discouraged by them, we write them down.
Exactly. It's about turning those mistakes into learning opportunities. So by writing them down, you're becoming more aware of them and you can start to identify patterns in your errors.
That's brilliant. I'm definitely going to start a mistake journal today.
Wonderful. Remember, every mistake is a chance to learn and grow.
Wow, this has been such a great conversation. I feel like I have a whole new set of tools to improve my English speaking.
That's wonderful to hear.
Before we wrap up, I want to ask you one last question. What's the biggest piece of advice you'd give to someone who's maybe feeling a little stuck or discouraged, on their English learning journey?
That's a great question. I think the most important thing to remember is that learning a language is a process. It takes time and effort. There will be moments when you feel frustrated or discouraged, but it's important to keep going.
Yeah, don't give up.
Yeah, remember why you started learning English in the first place. Think about all the amazing things you'll be able to do when you can speak English fluently.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
What are some of those things?
Well, you'll be able to connect with people from all over the world. You'll be able to travel more easily. You'll be able to access new information and opportunities.
That's so inspiring. It's like opening up a whole new world.
Exactly.
So we need to remember our goals and why we started on this journey.
Yes, and remember, you're not alone on this journey. There are millions of people around the world who are learning English, and there are so many resources available to help you succeed.
There really are.
So don't be afraid to ask for help, connect with other learners, celebrate your progress along the way.
Celebrate our progress, no matter how small.
Exactly. It's all about taking small steps and moving forward every day.
Absolutely. And remember, learning English should be enjoyable. So find ways to make it fun for yourself. Watch funny movies, listen to your favorite music, read interesting books, talk to people you enjoy spending time with.
That's great advice. It shouldn't feel like a chore. It should be something that we look forward to doing.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all these amazing tips and strategies with our listeners. I feel so motivated and inspired to keep practicing and keep improving.
It was my pleasure. I'm so glad I could be here. And to all of our amazing listeners out there, what are you waiting for? It's time to break free from the study trap and unlock your English speaking potential.
And start speaking today, even if it's just for a few minutes. Remember, every little bit of practice counts.
That's right. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. They're proof that you're learning and growing.
Embrace the journey, have fun, and celebrate your progress along the way.
Those are words to live by. And if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to our podcast and share it with other English learners who might find it helpful.
We'll be back next week with more tips and tricks to help you on your English learning journey.
Until then, keep practicing and keep shining. Happy speaking!
Thanks for watching. Do like the video, share this to your friend, and don't forget to subscribe my channel.